there's no better feeling as an Arsenal fan coming away from White Hart Lane with a win to your name, and it's a crucial win, a win that we so desperately needed after a poor run of results against the likes of Chelsea and Dynamo Zagreb in the Champions League. But I guess you could say this rectifies what has happened in the past. It was a win that we so desperately needed. And going into that game against Leicester, the buzz within the dressing room should be back, and I would hope that we go out and start putting in some more convincing performances. This win really does mean nothing if we're not able to follow it up with a performance against Leicester, but on the night I'm absolutely ecstatic with how he performed and that we've got a win in the end. Although saying that, how he performed was a little bit hit and miss, I guess you could say, a little bit defensively vulnerable, but overall it was a game that really did make a good advert for the League Cup. Matthew Flamini, of course, getting on the scoreboard twice really does prove my point there, but any team could have won it in the end. I thought we had that little bit more conviction than Spurs did. Spurs rotated their side quite significantly for a game that I assumed they would go all out in, but similarly to us, they did rectify, well not rectify, but they altered their defence quite drastically. They brought in Fazio, who's a player that I really do not rate, and he put in a poor performance tonight in my opinion. The only player that I think can really leave the game with the head held high in the Tottenham side in their back line is possibly Danny Rose. He was causing us all sorts of problems down our right flank, and he was certainly their outlet in the defensive department. But apart from that, the guy that was partnering Fazio at the back, who I can't remember his name, but he was poor in my opinion, and it was a very inexperienced Tottenham side. And I was surprised because they won 3 games on the bounce, I think, conceded no goals, and they were high on confidence. So I would have thought going into a game against their North London rivals, they'd want to get one up on us, but they didn't really go out to prove that point this evening, and that was evidenced by their team selection. Although up top they did have a lot of dangerous players, like with Eriksen, Chadley. I hate playing against Chadley. Harry Kane started up top. He looked dangerous throughout the course of the match, but I think we dealt with them well. Defensively, we made a lot of changes though. We brought in Matthew Debussy, we brought in Kieran Gibbs, who had a really fantastic game for Arsenal. David Ospina between the sticks, thought he had a decent game. Per Mertesacker was reinstated to the Arsenal 11, thought he had a solid performance. Callum Chambers, despite the own goal, was a very positive outlet for Arsenal. I was really pleased with how the young Englishman performed. So overall, thought we had a decent game defensively, but the one area of Arsenal's team selection that really did worry me was the midfield pivot of Arteta and Flamini. Looking back to a few years ago when that was our starting choice midfield pivot for a couple of games, and it did worry me a little bit that those two were starting in the same team together. Arteta had Arteta, I think he struggled to keep up with the pace of the game at times, but I think you do have to give him credit where it's due, because for our first goal, he was so involved in the move. He was the one that made the crucial interception for Arsenal. Well, it was a tackle, I believe, and then it all kicked off from there. And he doesn't, what he lacks in technical ability, I think he certainly makes up for in work ethic. He really did work hard tonight. Given his age, it was always going to be a tough game for him, and it's not really his fault that he's the backup player for Francis Coquelin at this moment in time. Wenger, I still believe he should have brought someone in that position, but when Arteta does play, he gives his all, and he's just getting on a bit. We've got to accept that fact. I thought he did a decent job tonight, but I still firmly believe that we need someone better in that department. And his counterpart, Matthew Flamini, who had a unbelievable game for Arsenal, quite frankly. The player that you wouldn't assume, wouldn't even predict, odds of 22-1 of getting on the score sheet, let alone scoring 2 goals in this game. Fantastic result for Flamini and Arsenal, of course, as well. But it just really rubs salt into the wounds of Spurs for him to get on the score sheet of all people. Really happy for him. It's exactly what he needed. Went outside to prove a point, and aside from his goals, actually had a really good defensive performance. I mean, can we look at Flamini now as a player that can rival Coquelin for that defensive midfield spot? Can we go to the likes of Bayern Munich away and line up with Coquelin and Flamini in a midfield pivot, a French midfield pivot, and expect that to do a job in the midfield for us in big away games? I'm not so sure. I still think it remains to be seen, but again, it's a good advert for the League Cup. Flamini did really well tonight and certainly justifies why he's trying so hard to make a push into the first team. But I do still believe that Francis Coquelin is, without a shadow of a doubt, our first choice central defensive midfielder. It's just a question of whether those two could really work in the same lineup. As well as that up top, we started with Oxlade-Chamberlain, Joel Campbell, Aaron Ramsey in the central attacking midfield role, and Olivier Giroud playing in front of them. I was really disappointed with Giroud tonight, quite frankly. I thought he failed to get involved in the game at times, missed a couple of chances that he should have been doing better with, and generally his hold-up play was very poor. I was disappointed with Giroud. Joel Campbell worked really hard, but I think his time at Arsenal really is coming to an end. He really is cutting it fine with the point that he's trying to prove at Arsenal, and he's not the best. He's not the best of players, with all respect to him. He's a decent player. He works hard for the team, but I don't think he's at the level required to play for Arsenal. I like Campbell. I think he's a decent player. Really did work hard tonight. I think got to give him credit. He tracked back well at times, and he did work hard for the team. But I just don't think he's good enough for Arsenal, to be frank. Chamberlain on the left hand side, should I say, had a he had a very showboating game, but lacked an end product. He was all skill and no content really from Chamberlain, and I'd like to see him, because there was a moment in the game when he had some really good skilling moves and then he just played a pass that was absolutely diabolical. I'd hope that he'd rectify that part of his game. Ramsey through the middle had an okay game. Did some good things going forward. I think a lot of pressure was on his shoulders to create stuff for Arsenal. I do think we lacked creativity when Ozil's not in the side, but Ramsey did what he could, and it does frustrate me that we don't play him in his preferred role ever. He's either on the right hand side or playing a central attacking midfield role, and I would prefer him to play through the middle for Arsenal, but that little bit deeper alongside someone like Matthew Flamini, Francis Coquelin. Heading into that game against Leicester, I would keep Cazorla out of the side, play Ramsey alongside Coquelin, then with Chamberlain and Alexis on the wings possibly. Something like that could work for us. Walker up top, but that remains to be seen, and I'll mention that in my preview for the game against Leicester. But focusing more on tonight's game, we got our first goal through Matthew Flamini, and yeah, I mean, what a goal it was. Like I say, credit has to go to Arteta for starting the move, but a nice few intricate passes for Arsenal. Really good work by Oxlade-Chamberlain to first of all turn around the player and then get his shot away at Michel Vorm. Vorm did poorly, and Flamini just kind of walked up to the ball out of nowhere, wasn't man-marked by anyone, and almost missed, but put it into the roof of the net. A really good goal by Matthew Flamini. Certainly what he needed, and put us 1-0 up, and yeah, it was certainly a deserved lead for Arsenal. Tottenham hadn't really done much at that point. We were starting to take control of the game, and we started that half with a 1-0 lead, and going into that second half, it didn't really start off in the same fashion, I don't think. I felt we started it a little bit slower. Spurs were going out there with more of a point to prove. They were having chances, they were looking more convincing up top, and Debuchy was really the area of the pitch where the right hand side, should I say, was the area of the pitch where Spurs were having a lot of their joy, and Debuchy was responsible for that. He had a decent end to the game, Matthew Debuchy, but aside from that, very poor in my opinion, and has to be brought under some scrutiny for the way he's performing. I mean, he's an experienced player, shouldn't be performing in the way that he is. And when he came in last season, he actually put in some really good displays. So I'm a bit perplexed as to why he's playing like this. Obviously, injuries do take their toll. He's lacking confidence after being kept out of the side by Hector Bellerin. But if he wants to get back into this Arsenal team, tonight's performance is not the right way to go about it. And they were, like I say, Spurs were having a lot of joy down that side. Chadley was getting balls in. Danny Rose was doing well down that flank. And they got a ball in. I think it was Chadley that played the ball in. And Chambers was unfortunate to put the ball into the back of the net, because Chambers, like I say, had a very good game up until that. Well, he continues to have a good... I thought he responded really well after the own goal, actually, Chambers. And he was unfortunate to put the ball in the back of his own net. That's 2 own goals in 2 games for him now, so his confidence must be rattled a little bit. But like I say, he responded well. David Ospina and Mertesacker as well, I think, are slightly at fault for this. Mertesacker had Harry Kane covered. Ospina was about to collect the ball, but no one gave Chambers the shout, or it didn't look at least like anyone gave Chambers the shout to leave the ball for the other player, or Ospina or Mertesacker. So the lack of communication, the leadership thing is brought back into question again. I would hope that because it's little things like that that cost you goals, and that was proven tonight. Spurs really did look a little bit more convincing after that. There was, of course, the chance that Harry Kane had. Gibbs with a brilliant bit of defending. Gibbs making a really good point to actually start the game of the weekend against Leicester City. I thought he had an excellent game tonight, and with England having a bit of a crisis in their left-back situation, really is making a point to prove, Kieran Gibbs, and I was really pleased with how he played this evening. Of course, there was the Harry Kane chance, like I just mentioned. Gibbs clearing it off the line, brilliant work by him. And then we really got our boost when Alexis Sanchez entered the field of play. Had an excellent lift to the team when he came onto the pitch. Did some great stuff when he came on. He's a little bit selfish at times, but maybe that was needed in a game like this. That was making a lot of things happen for us going forward. Brought some much needed pace to the game, and we got a wonder goal really, which kind of came out of absolutely nothing. Flamini, again of all people, just completely... He has no right to be in that position, but I'm so glad that he did get into... he ventured out into that area of the pitch, eyes on the ball, completely focused, and absolutely smashes it into the corner of the net. It was a Zidane-esque type of volley, and 2-1 up, and yeah, we looked really good at that point. I thought Flamini really did have a great performance tonight, wrapped off by 2 really great goals, and defensively, like I say, had a really good game. And overall, 2-1 win away from home at the Lane, a decent performance. Walcott looked good when he came on as well. The subs looked good for us, and you know, overall, I'm really pleased with how tonight went. We really did need this win. We've got a massive game at the weekend against Leicester. Like I say, this win won't count for much if we don't follow it up with a win against Leicester City the weekend. That's definitely going to be a difficult away trip. So I would hope that we go all guns blazing for that, and maybe start Kieran Gibbs in that game. Maybe alter the midfield a little bit, and just learn some lessons from tonight. Really, in terms of picking the team. I think it was a decent team that started tonight, and a team that has come away with a win at the Lane. Of course, we've got Sheffield Wednesday away from home in the next round of the Cup. decent draw, favourable draw out of all the top sides. We've probably got the comfiest draw, but I love playing the lower league sides away from home, and I do think it will be a tough game nonetheless. Sheffield Wednesday got nothing to lose in that game. They'll be going all out for it. I would hope we get a win there and progress into the next stage of the competition. But anyway, guys, massive win for us tonight. I do hope you've enjoyed this video of our win against Spurs at White Hart Lane. Feels so good saying that. But onwards and upwards to the game against Leicester. Like the video if you've enjoyed it. Subscribe to Arsenal Fan TV, and please do check out my own channel, AFC Game by Game. And as always, thank you very much for watching.